What's up, guys? In this video, we'll be talking about the Indiana Pacers 2020-2021 offseason. So looking at their 2019-20 recap, they came into the year with Victor Oladipo injured, but he was going to come back during the regular season at some point. And during that time, Domantas Sabonis turned into an all-star for them. He was a really good player for them last year, and there was kind of a debate whether or not to keep him or Miles Turner. And Sabonis was actually the second best out of them at the beginning of the season, but he proved to be the better player just throughout the first 40 games of the year. He was voted into his first All-Star game, so yeah, a really good year. He averaged 18, 12, and 5, just had some triple-doubles, so really good year for Sabonis, but then he ended up getting injured before the playoffs started, and he wasn't even able to play in the bubble at all, so it was a tough loss for them, but it was good that he turned into that caliber of player for them. Oladipo, when he came back, played very poorly. He looked like a shell of himself athletically, even making threes, just didn't look like the same basketball player. And even in the preseason now, he doesn't look great. Hopefully he can eventually turn back into Oladipo from a few years ago, the most improved player. That would be really helpful for this team, and that's really the only way I see this team taking that next step, but we'll get into that later. Miles Turner was also pretty disappointing. Like I said, he was thought of as the better of the two, and going into the season, it was talked about that they had to trade one of them, Sabonis or Turner, because the fit wasn't great. They tried to trade Turner for a sign and trade with the Celtics for Gordon Hayward, and the Celtics wanted more than just Turner. So Turner's stock has definitely dropped recently, but they still have him on the roster, and I would bet he gets moved, but we'll see. And then TJ Warren had a really good bubble play in the bubble during the play-in games. He averaged 30 points a game during that stretch and had two 50-point games, I think. He was just actually insane from the bubble. Didn't play as well during the playoffs against the Miami Heat, but still just a really impressive bubble play, and showed he really can shoulder an offense at certain times. So looking at some of the moves they made this offseason, there wasn't really much at all to talk about. They acquired Jalen Lacroix, I think that's how you say his name, from Oklahoma City. They drafted Cassius Stanley 54th overall. He's on a two-way deal. Leaving them is Rashawn Hammonds and Kalan Martin, and then staying. So yeah, there wasn't much movement at all. Staying for them is Goga Batista, Brian Bowen, Amita Bremen, and Malcolm Brogdon, who we're going to talk about him for a bit. Malcolm Brogdon's a really good point guard for them, just kind of a calming presence. He didn't shoot as well from three, surprisingly. This season, he only shot 32%, and his average for his career is 38%, so kind of an off-year shooting. But in the bubble, when he was asked to be their number one ball handler and just lead guy, he was really good. He had a couple 20 and 10 games. He averages 16 and 7. I see him kind of in a Chauncey role, just he can never be your best player, or obviously not your best player, but a lead scorer or anything. You have to have good pieces around him to really maximize what he can do, but he's just good at everything on the court, plays really good defense, is efficient, passes well, just a really nice player to have. Off the bench for them, they have Aaron Holiday, who is really good as a backup point guard. They drafted him a few years ago in the late 20s, and he's just been really good for them. Averaged 9.5 points and 3 assists on really good efficiencies. I really like him, just a really quick, just smart point guard, has a good pull-up three, can find the open guy, just plays good backup point guard minutes. Another player on this team, his brother, Justin Holiday, a good three-point shooter, a good wing. Not really spectacular at anything. Defense is probably his best attribute. He's an above average defender, but besides that, there's not much to go off of. He's a 34% three-point shooter, but the next player, Jeremy Lamb, kind of just trumps him in everything offensively. He averages more points, shoots a little less efficient from three, I believe, into the field, but he's a better all-around scorer, I believe. But yeah, no, both of them are useful to have. But I do like Jeremy Lamb a lot. He had a couple really good games for Charlotte a few years ago, and he was just good off the bench for them again this year. So he's a good guy for them, a scorer off the bench. And then TJ McConnell, I think he played a lot more minutes, and then Aaron Holiday started to take over his minutes. He's also just a super efficient backup point guard. he has a really good assist to turnover percentage, and he averages like 5 assists in like 20 minutes a game. So he's just really efficient passing the ball. Not much of a scorer and shooter at all. He shoots like 25% from 3, and a decent defender, mostly just like an effort guy. And then another player off the bench, Doug McDermott. He's a really good 3-point shooter, shot like 42% from 3 on like 5 or 6 attempts a game. That's really his only above average attribute. Not great defensively, can't really score with the ball, mostly not like really exclusively an off-ball player and catch and shoot guy, but having a guy who can knock down 42% of his threes is a good thing. And then looking at some of the key players on this team, Miles Turner, I guess, he's probably just going to play those backup center minutes, or maybe they'll do a weird thing with him starting. I doubt that, though. I could see him getting moved. They tried to move him. He just has a lot of money, and hasn't really improved since like his rookie year. I know it sounds weird, but he played really well his rookie year, and everybody thought he was going to be like the second best player with Paul George. And just every year we've waited for him to take that next step, and he just hasn't. He's like a decent 3-point shooter. Shoots like 34% from 3, which is good for a big man. He's a good rim protector, but against other skilled bigs like the Jokic's and Embiid's and Anthony Davis's of the world, he gets kind of exposed around them. So just like I could see him getting moved, but if not, he's probably just going to play backup center for them. TJ Warren, like we talked about, had a really good bubble play. He was guarded by Jimmy Butler in the next series against the Heat, so it was tough for him to score in that series. I do like him a lot as like a third option where his job is literally just put the ball in the basket because he's good at doing that. But besides that, not a good passer, like facilitator at all. He's not going to do that, so he shouldn't be your lead guy. Decent defender, just like he's a professional scorer and not much else. So I think as long as his job is to just score, I think he's a really good player to have, especially on his contract. He's really cheap for the amount of points, and he's like a 40% free 3-point shooter, just super efficient scoring the ball. And Victor Oladipo, we talked about him a little bit too. I think he's going to be the key to this team, really unlocking their potential. If he could go back to being an all-star caliber player like he was in 2017, I believe, when he won Most Improved Player, I could see this team being like a top 4 seed in the East just because Sabonis and Warren, they just have a really good collective group. But without him, it's tough for me to see this team doing much. He just hasn't been efficient since he came back, and he still demands the ball like he is that same player, so it's a tough situation. He seems unhappy too. Like I think he asked for a trade, but they're not going to do it. It's a little weird there situation to watch. Maybe he could get moved at some point in the year if he continues to play poorly. And then Domantas Sabonis, I think he's going to miss a little bit of this year and then come back. I'm not positive about that, but I'd really like to see him back on the court. He was really good last year, one of the most like entertaining players to watch, had a few triple doubles. Just a really good rebounder, good passer for his size, good inside scoring, kind of like a traditional throwback big, but I think in today's NBA, we're starting to shift back to that, so I think it'll work. Defensively, he can be exposed a little bit just because he's pretty slow-footed, and if you get a switch on him with a guard, he can get exposed on the perimeter, but besides that, he's a really good just offensive player, offensive big, and if he can stay healthy and play a full season for them, I think he'll be the best player on this team. So looking at their outlook and my prediction for this team, I put them as the 7th seed in the West or the East. I think they have a really good starting 5 and a really good bench. Like they're just a deep team overall, and they have continuity, which is a good thing with this league, how often people are changing, and with COVID going on, having a team that everybody knows their role and knows how to play together is a useful thing. Even though like their stars haven't played together a super ton, like Victor Oladipo and Sabonis have always like been injured when the other one comes back and has never played at all-star levels together. And that's like kind of where I'm going. I think they're a lock for the playoffs, and I think they for sure will make it as an 8 or 7 seed or 6. But if Oladipo and Sabonis can both play at all-star levels, I think that's the key to this team exceeding those expectations. So that's what I think about the Indiana Pacers. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe below, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.